was a Navajo police officer in Los Angeles 1979.
Hit subscribe for more stories from tribal law enforcement. Drop a like and comment where you're watching from. Now let's get into it. My name is Thomas Begaye, and in 1979, I was a patrol officer with the Navajo Nation Police Department. I'd been on the force for 12 years, working out of the Window Rock Station on the Arizona side of the reservation. Most people don't realize how big the Navajo Nation is. 27,000 square miles spanning 3 states. That's bigger than 10 U.S. states combined. And with a population spread thin across that territory, we had jurisdiction over an area where help could be hours away. The reservation has always had its own rules. Tribal sovereignty means we handle our own law enforcement, our own courts, our own justice system. The federal government and state police stay out unless we ask for help, which we rarely do, because there are things that happen on the reservation that outsiders wouldn't understand, things that don't fit into their categories of crime and natural causes. Sector 7 was one of those things. It started in late September 1979. A rancher named Henry Yazzie reported missing livestock. 23 sheep gone overnight from a fenced grazing area near Cove. That's not unusual on the reservation. Coyotes, mountain lions, even the occasional bear will take livestock. But Henry said something about the scene wasn't right. The fence hadn't been damaged. No tracks leading away. Just empty pasture and bloodstains on the rocks. I drove out to his property that afternoon. Henry was waiting by his truck, a weathered man in his 60s who'd been raising sheep his whole life. He knew predator kills. This wasn't that. "Show me," I said. He led me to the grazing area. The fence was intact, wired tight and post solid. Inside the enclosure, I found what he'd described. Dark stains on the sandstone outcroppings, patches of wool caught on brush. But no carcasses, no drag marks, no paw prints, just blood and the lingering smell of something wrong. "I've seen coyote kills," Henry said. "I've seen what a mountain lion does. This is different. The blood patterns, they're not right. And Officer Begaye, the sheep didn't run. You can always tell when livestock panic. Disturbed ground, scattered droppings, broken vegetation. These sheep just stood there and something took them." "How many head are we talking about?" I asked. 23 confirmed missing. But here's what troubles me. I counted the blood pools. There are 47. I looked at him. "You're saying twice as many sheep were killed as you had in this pasture?" Henry nodded. "And I've been counting my flock twice a day for 40 years. I had 23 sheep here yesterday evening. This morning, none. But enough blood for twice that number. I took photographs and collected samples of the wool and blood stains, made a report, classified it as predator attack pending investigation. But Henry's words stayed with me. Blood for 47 animals when only 23 were missing. That didn't make sense. 3 days later, another rancher reported the same thing, Sarah Benally, 15 miles southwest of Henry's place. 18 sheep gone overnight, fence intact, no tracks, blood on the rocks for at least 30 animals. I requested backup, and my supervisor assigned me a partner. His name was Raymond Sosi, a younger officer who'd grown up in Chinle. He'd been on the force for 3 years and had that mix of eagerness and caution that kept rookies alive. When we drove out to Sarah's property, Raymond went quiet as soon as he saw the scene. He walked the perimeter twice before speaking. "This is Sector 7, he said finally. I'd heard the term before, but never paid much attention. Sector 7 was a designation used by older officers, one that appeared on some maps, but not others. An area roughly 30 miles across in the northwestern part of the reservation, bordering the Chuska Mountains. Officers avoided it when they could. Dispatchers tried not to send units there after sunset. "What's significant about Sector 7?" I asked. Raymond crouched down by one of the blood pools. My grandfather worked for the tribal police in the 50s. He told stories about this area, said there were places on the reservation where the old things still walked, places where traditional boundaries got thin. Sector 7 is one of them. "I'm not interested in stories," I said. "I'm interested in finding whoever or whatever is killing livestock." "It's not whoever," Raymond said quietly. "It's whatever, and it's been doing this a long time." Over the next 2 weeks, 6 more ranchers reported missing livestock. Always the same pattern. Overnight disappearances, no forced entry, no tracks, blood for more animals than were actually missing. And all of them within Sector 7's boundaries. The tribal council called a meeting. 17 ranchers had lost livestock, totaling over 200 animals. That represented significant economic loss for families who depended on sheep for income. They wanted answers and protection. I gave my report, listed the facts, the patterns, the evidence I'd collected. Recommended increasing patrols in the affected area and possibly bringing in federal wildlife services to check for unusual predator behavior. One of the council elders, a man named Harold Begaye, interrupted me. He was in his 80s, respected, someone whose opinion carried weight. "Officer Begaye," he said, "how long have you been with the tribal police?" 12 years, sir." "And in those 12 years, have you ever worked Sector 7 after dark?" "I've responded to calls there, yes. But have you patrolled it at night? Spent hours in that area once the sun goes down?" I admitted I hadn't. Most calls to Sector 7 came during daylight. The few times I'd been there after dark were brief, in and out quickly. Harold leaned forward. "There's a reason for that. Your supervisors, the ones who've been here longer than 12 years, they know. They don't send officers into Sector 7 after sunset unless absolutely necessary. Because things happen there. Things that don't appear in reports or official records. Things we handle quietly. With respect, Mr. Begaye, I need more than traditional warnings. I need actionable information." "What specifically happens in Sector 7? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke words that every Navajo learns as a child but most dismiss as superstition by adulthood. "Ye Naaldlushi," he said. "The ones who walk on all fours. They're more active in Sector 7 than anywhere else on the reservation. Have been for generations. Most of the time they keep to themselves, stay in the deep canyons and old places. But sometimes they come out, and when they do, livestock disappear, people disappear." The meeting ended without resolution. The council authorized increased patrols, but within specific parameters. No solo units in Sector 7. No operations after sunset without supervisor approval. And all officers working that area needed to check in every hour via radio. Raymond and I started extended patrols. We drove the dirt roads, checked on ranchers, looked for any evidence that would explain the pattern. During the day, Sector 7 looked like any other part of the reservation. Red rock formations, scattered juniper and pinon trees, occasional hogans where families had lived for generations. Nothing unusual or threatening. But as sunset approached, something changed. The light shifted in a way that made distances hard to judge. Shadows appeared where they shouldn't be, and the wildlife went silent. No birds, no insects, just an oppressive quiet that made conversation feel like an intrusion. "We need to be back at the main road before dark," Raymond said on our third patrol. His voice had an edge I hadn't heard before. "Why?" "We're authorized to work until 8. Authorization doesn't mean it's smart. The ranchers don't keep their animals in Sector 7 overnight anymore. They move them out before sunset. There's a reason." I was about to argue when I saw it. just for a moment, in the rearview mirror. A figure standing on a ridge about 200 yards behind us, too far to make out details, but the proportions were wrong. Too tall, too thin, standing in a posture that didn't look natural. I stopped the truck and grabbed binoculars. By the time I focused on the ridge, nothing was there. "Did you see that?" I asked Raymond. He was already on the radio. "Dispatch, Unit 7, requesting clearance to exit Sector 7, approaching sunset." The dispatcher, an older woman named Ella, responded immediately. "Unit 7, cleared for exit. Do not remain in Sector 7 after dark. Acknowledge." "Unit 7 acknowledges," Raymond said. Then he looked at me. "Drive," I drove. Behind us, the sun dropped below the horizon, and Sector 7 disappeared into darkness. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the figure on the ridge, the way it had been standing, watching our vehicle, the way it vanished the moment I tried to get a better look. The next morning, I went to the records room at headquarters. Started pulling old files, going back years. I wanted to know if there was a documented history of incidents in Sector 7. Something that would explain the current pattern or validate the stories Harold Begaye had referenced. What I found was incomplete but disturbing. There were gaps in the records, years where incidents from Sector 7 simply weren't documented. But in the files that did exist, I found a pattern going back to 1952. Every few years, usually in the fall, livestock would start disappearing from Sector 7. The incidents would cluster over 2 or 3 months, then stop. No resolution, no arrests, no definitive cause identified. Just notations in the files. Predator attack suspected. Case closed. But there were other files, missing persons reports from Sector 7. Not many, maybe 1 every 5 years, but consistent. Hikers who didn't return. Teenagers who went out and never came home. A uranium miner in 1967 who left his crew to check something and vanished. His vehicle was found 3 miles from the mine site. Driver's door open, keys in the ignition, no sign of struggle. I found a file from 1958 that made me stop reading. A report filed by an officer named John Hosteen. He'd responded to a call about screaming heard near the old Spanish mission ruins in Sector 7. When he arrived, he found fresh blood and signs of a struggle, but no victim, no body, no witnesses. His report included a detail that stood out, subject observed at scene. Humanoid figure, approximately 7 feet tall, moving on 4 limbs in manner inconsistent with known wildlife. Subject fled when officer approached. Pursuit not attempted due to dangerous terrain and failing light. Below that, in different handwriting, someone had added, "Report, rejected officer, Hosteen suspended pending psychological evaluation." John Hosteen had seen something in Sector 7 and been punished for reporting it. I wondered how many other officers had seen things and learned to stay quiet. I checked the personnel records. John Hosteen had worked for the Tribal Police from 1955 to 1959, resigned after repeated reassignments following his 1958 report. No further information on file. That afternoon, I got a call from dispatch. Another missing flock, this time from a ranch on the eastern edge of Sector 7. Benjamin Nez, 42 sheep gone. Same pattern as before. Raymond and I responded. When we arrived, Benjamin was standing by his truck with his rifle. He saw us and his expression was grim. "It came in daylight this time," he said. "I saw it." "Saw what?" I asked. He hesitated. His hands were shaking slightly. Something that shouldn't exist, something my grandfather warned me about, but I didn't believe. Until 20 minutes ago. "Can you describe it?" Benjamin looked at the ground. Tall, walking on 4 legs, but the legs were too long. The back arched like a wolf, but the size of a bear. And the head, he paused, shaking his head. The head looked wrong, almost like it was wearing something, like a mask. Did it attack you? He shook his head. It was killing my sheep. I fired 3 rounds at it. Hit it at least once, I'm sure. But it just looked at me, just stood there looking. Then it ran, faster than anything I've ever seen. Went over that ridge in seconds. Show me where. He led us to a rocky outcropping about a 1/4 mile from his grazing area. The ground was stained with blood. Scattered around were the remains of sheep. Not eaten, torn apart. Pieces scattered as if something had killed for the sake of killing rather than for food. And there, in the dust near the blood, were tracks. I'd seen a lot of animal tracks in my 12 years. These weren't like anything in my experience. They looked almost like human hands, but elongated, with claw marks at the tips. The gait pattern was wrong, too. Not 4 legs moving in the rhythm of a wolf or a bear. Something else. Something that moved on 4 limbs but whose limbs didn't match any known animal. Raymond was photographing the tracks. His face had gone pale. "We need to call this in," he said. "Get Federal Wildlife Services out here. This is beyond our scope." I was about to agree when I noticed something. About 50 yards away, partially hidden by brush, was an opening in the rock face. A cave entrance, maybe 5 feet high and 3 feet wide. And around that entrance, the ground was disturbed. More tracks, leading in and out, leading deeper into Sector 7. "I think I found where it's coming from," I said. Raymond followed my gaze, saw the cave. Then he grabbed my arm. "No," he said firmly. "We're not going in there. We call this in. We wait for backup. We do not go into unknown caves in Sector 7 without proper support." He was right. Protocol dictated we report and wait for a tactical team. But something in my gut told me that if we waited, if we followed proper procedure, whatever was using that cave would disappear, would relocate, and the killing would continue somewhere else. I radioed dispatch, reported what we'd found, requested a tactical team and additional units. Ella's response was immediate. "Negative on tactical team. No resources available until tomorrow morning. Unit 7 is ordered to mark the location and exit Sector 7. Do not investigate cave. Acknowledge." Raymond looked relieved. I felt frustrated. But orders were orders. We marked the cave location with GPS coordinates and fluorescent tape. Then we headed back to the vehicles. The sun was starting to drop. We had maybe 2 hours of daylight left. As we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. Standing at the cave entrance, barely visible in the fading light, was a figure. Tall, hunched, watching us leave. Tomorrow, we'd come back with backup and proper equipment. Tomorrow, we'd investigate that cave and find answers. But first, we had to survive tonight in Sector 7. We didn't make it out of Sector 7 before dark. 20 minutes after leaving Benjamin's ranch, the patrol vehicle died. Engine just stopped. All electrical systems went dead. We coasted to a stop in the middle of a dirt road with maybe 30 minutes of twilight left. Raymond tried the ignition. Nothing. Not even a click. He checked the battery connections, the fuses, everything he could think of. The truck was completely dead. "This doesn't just happen," he said. "Not to a vehicle that was running fine 2 minutes ago." I grabbed the radio. Also, dead. The portable radios we carried, the flashlights, even my wristwatch had stopped. Everything electronic within the vehicle had failed simultaneously. "We need to walk," I said. "Main road is maybe 5 miles east. We can make it before full dark if we move fast." Raymond looked at the surrounding landscape. The sun was below the horizon now, that brief twilight before true darkness. And in that fading light, the rock formations cast shadows that seemed to move on their own. "We're not going to make it," he said quietly. "And we shouldn't be out here on foot after dark. Whatever killed those sheep, whatever Benjamin saw, it's out here. probably watching us right now. You want to stay in a dead vehicle all night? I want to find shelter, he replied. Somewhere defensible. There's an old hogan about a mile north abandoned, but the structure should be intact. We wait there until sunrise, then walk out. It wasn't a great plan, but it was better than walking in the dark or sitting in an indefensible vehicle. We grabbed our weapons and what gear we could carry and started north. The temperature dropped as the light faded. September nights on the reservation can get cold, especially at elevation. We moved quickly, Raymond navigating by landmarks. He'd grown up in this area, knew the land better than I did. We reached the hogan just as the last light died. It was a traditional structure, logs and mud in an octagonal shape. Built back in the 40s or 50s and abandoned for decades. The door was missing, but the walls and roof were solid. Inside, the floor was dirt, and there were signs that transients had used it over the years. A fire pit in the center, some old blankets in a corner, empty food cans. We checked the structure thoroughly. One entrance, no windows, walls thick enough to stop small-caliber rounds. It would do. Raymond started gathering wood for a fire I was about to help when I noticed something. Scratched into the logs above the doorway, barely visible in the darkness, were symbols. Navajo protection markings. Someone had carved them there deliberately, probably when the hogan was built. And around the outside of the structure, placed at regular intervals, were small bundles. I recognized them as traditional offerings. Corn pollen, turquoise, herbs wrapped in cloth and tied with leather cord. They'd been there a long time, weathered and faded, but intentionally positioned. Someone protected this place, I said. Raymond looked at the markings and nodded. Smart family. They knew what lived out here. Knew how to keep it away. Will it work? He started the fire. I don't know. My grandfather said the old protections were strong when people still believed in them, when they were maintained and respected. But this hogan's been abandoned for years. The offerings are old. I don't know if they still have power. We settled in for the night. The fire gave light and warmth. We took turns keeping watch, 2-hour shifts. Raymond took the first shift while I tried to sleep. I must have dozed off because I woke to Raymond shaking my shoulder. His hand was over my mouth, signaling silence. The fire had burned down to embers, giving barely enough light to see by. Outside, I heard sounds. Footsteps, but not human. Something moving around the hogan in a circle. Slow, deliberate steps. And with each step, a sound like claws scraping rock. Raymond had his weapon drawn, aimed at the doorway. I did the same. We waited. The footsteps stopped directly outside the entrance. Through the dim firelight, I could see a shadow blocking the doorway. Something large, something that stood at least 7 feet tall, even in its hunched posture. Then it spoke. Not words exactly, but sounds that formed patterns, almost like it was trying to mimic human speech but couldn't quite manage it. The sounds were wet, guttural, coming from a throat, not shaped for language. Raymond's hands were shaking. He started to say something, and I gestured for silence. The thing outside went quiet, as if listening. Then the footsteps resumed, continuing their circle around the hogan. For 2 hours it circled, never entering, never backing away, just walking that same pattern over and over. Sometimes it would stop and make those sounds. Sometimes it would scrape claws against the logs. But it never tried to force entry. When dawn finally came, the footsteps stopped. We heard something move away quickly, heading west toward the higher terrain. We waited another 30 minutes before venturing outside. The morning light showed the tracks clearly. They circled the hogan completely, 30 or 40 rotations worth. Each track was that same elongated hand-like print with claw marks, and at each point where the traditional offerings had been placed, the tracks diverted slightly. as if the thing couldn't or wouldn't walk directly over them. The old protections worked, Raymond said. Barely, but they worked. We started walking east toward the main road. Made it about 2 miles before we saw a vehicle approaching. It was my supervisor, Lieutenant So, along with 2 other officers. They'd been searching for us since we didn't check in last night. "Your vehicle died?" So asked after we explained the situation. "Everything electronic failed simultaneously," I confirmed. "We made it to the old Nez Hogan and sheltered there until dawn." Zoe exchanged looks with the other officers I'd seen that look before. The look of people who knew more than they were saying. "Get in," Zoe said. "We'll send a tow truck for your patrol vehicle. You 2 are being reassigned temporarily. Detective work on a burglary case in Shiprock. Sir, we have a cave location marked. Evidence of the creature killing livestock. We need to investigate. The cave will be investigated by a specialized team," Zoe said firmly. "You've done good work identifying the location. Now let others handle it." "With respect, Lieutenant, I've been working this case for 3 weeks. I should be part of the investigation team." Zoe's expression hardened. "Officer Begaye, you spent last night in Sector 7. You saw something. I can tell by how both of you are looking at those tracks you want to pursue this further, I understand. But this isn't a standard investigation. This requires expertise you don't have. Are we clear?" We weren't clear. But we got in the vehicle anyway. Back at headquarters, Zoe pulled me into his office alone. He closed the door and gestured for me to sit. "I served with your father," he said. "Good man, good officer. He worked Sector 7 in the 60s. You know what happened to him? My father died in 1971 car accident on Route 12. That's what the report said." "The report said a lot of things," Zoe replied. "Your father was investigating missing livestock in Sector 7, got too deep into it, started making connections, asking questions about things that had been quiet for years. Then one night his vehicle went off the road. No witnesses, no explanation, just an accident." He paused, weighing his words carefully. "Your father was a careful driver, Thomas. In all his years on the force, not a single traffic incident. But one night, on a straight road with good visibility, he somehow drove off into a ravine. The official investigation found no mechanical failure, no evidence of impairment. Just called it an accident and closed the case. You're saying it wasn't an accident. I'm saying your father got too close to things that don't want to be found. Things that have been on this land longer than the tribal police, longer than the Navajo Nation, longer than anyone can remember, and those things protect themselves. Then why are you telling me this? If it's dangerous, if people die investigating it, why not just let it go?" "Because it's getting worse," So said. "The incidents are escalating. Used to be a few livestock every few years. Now it's hundreds of animals in a matter of weeks. Something's changed. Something's made them more active, more aggressive. And if we don't figure out what, it's going to move beyond livestock. It's going to move to people." He pulled out a file and handed it to me. Inside were photographs and reports I hadn't seen before. Missing persons cases from the last 5 years, all from Sector 77 people total. Hikers, hunters, a couple of teenagers, all vanished without trace, all written off as getting lost in the wilderness or running away from home. "These aren't random disappearances," So said. "They all happened within a mile of that cave you found. And I think that cave is just the entrance. I think there's something bigger underneath Sector 7. Something that's been there a very long time." "The uranium mine," I said suddenly, remembering the report from 1967. There was uranium mining in Sector 7 in the 60s. So nodded. The Lukachukai mine, operated from 1952 to 1968. They pulled out over 1 million pounds of uranium ore before shutting down. Official reason was the ore body was depleted. Unofficial reason was they kept losing miners. Accidents, they called them. Cave-ins, equipment failures, men who went into the deep shafts and never came out. Where was the mine located? About 3 miles west of where you found that cave. And Thomas, the mine didn't deplete. They hit something down there. Something they couldn't explain. The company sealed the mine, paid off the families of the lost miners, and left. Never came back. I need to see that mine, I said. So shook his head. The mine entrance was sealed with concrete. No way in. The cave I found might connect to the old mine shafts. If the creature is using the cave, it might be using the entire underground network. That's what I'm afraid of, Zoe admitted. And that's why I'm taking you off this case. You're too much like your father, too determined to find answers even when the answers might kill you. He stood up, indicating the meeting was over. You're reassigned to Shiprock effective immediately. The Sector 7 investigation is being handled by a specialized team that's final. Who's on the specialized team? I asked. People who know what they're dealing with. People who've been trained to handle situations like this. Leave it to them. I left his office frustrated and suspicious. A specialized team that knew how to handle creatures that shouldn't exist? That sounded like something beyond standard tribal police procedure. Raymond was waiting outside. He'd been listening through the door, I could tell by his expression. We're reassigned, I told him. He nodded. I heard, so what do? Follow orders and go to Shiprock. That's not what you really plan to do, is it? I looked at him. You don't have to be part of this. You've got a family, a career. If I go back into Sector 7 without authorization, it's insubordination. Could cost me my job. Raymond was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. My grandfather told me something before he died. He said there are times when following orders isn't the same as doing what's right. He said sometimes you have to choose between your career and your conscience. I think this is one of those times. We can't go back tonight, I said. We need equipment, backup, a plan. I know someone who might help, Raymond said. An old medicine man named Thomas Begaye. He lives near Crystal. My grandfather said Thomas knows more about the old things than anyone alive. If anyone can tell us what we're dealing with, it's him. We drove to Crystal that afternoon. Found Thomas Begaye living in a traditional hogan on the outskirts of town. He was in his 90s, face weathered like ancient stone, but his eyes were sharp and clear. Raymond explained who we were and why we'd come. Thomas listened without interruption. When Raymond finished, the old man was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. You found a dwelling place, one of the old ones. They've been there longer than our people, longer than the ones who came before us. They were here when the land was different, when the mountains were young. They live deep in the earth, in places where light doesn't reach. What are they? I asked. Thomas shook his head. Names have power. To name them is to invite their attention. Your people call them Ye Naldlushi, but that's not quite right. Skinwalkers are humans who turn to dark ways. These are something else. Something that was never human. They can wear forms, can move on 4 legs or 2, can make sounds like speech. But underneath, they're not like us, not like anything that walks in daylight. How do we stop them? You don't, Thomas said simply. You can't fight them, can't kill them. They're too old, too strong. All you can do is drive them back into the deep places. Make the surface world unwelcome for them. That's what the old ones did. Made agreements, established boundaries, kept them below through ceremony and respect. What changed? Why are they active now? Thomas looked at me with those sharp eyes. You said there was uranium mining in their territory. Mining that went deep. That's what changed. The mining companies broke through into the old places, disturbed what should have stayed undisturbed. The creatures felt threatened, violated, so they started taking what was on the surface. Livestock first, then people. Can the boundaries be restored? Can the agreements be remade? Only if you're willing to face them, to go into their dwelling place and speak with them. But understand, Officer Begaye, they don't think like we do. They don't value life the way we do. To them, humans are temporary things. Interesting for a moment, then gone. They might listen, or they might add you to their collection. Collection? Raymond asked. The people who went missing, Thomas said. They don't kill everyone, some they keep. Take them deep into the earth where time moves differently. Keep them alive for years, studying them, learning from them. Your father knew this, it's why he kept investigating even when he was warned to stop. I felt my chest tighten. You knew my father? Thomas nodded slowly. John Begaye came to see me in 1971. 2 days before he died. He'd found evidence of the dwelling places. Wanted to know how to negotiate with the creatures. I told him the same thing I'm telling you. Don't go into the deep places. Don't try to face them alone. But he didn't listen. He thought he could make them understand, could establish new boundaries. Instead, they made sure he couldn't reveal what he'd learned. So, my father's death wasn't an accident. No, Thomas said gently, it wasn't. And if you follow this path, Officer Begaye, you risk the same fate. The question you must ask yourself is whether the truth is worth your life. I thought about my father, about all the missing people, about the ranchers losing their livestock and living in fear, about the thing that had circled the Hogan all night, unable to enter but unwilling to leave. If we don't stop this, I said, it will continue. More livestock, more people. How many deaths before someone finally acts? Thomas studied me for a long moment. Then he stood and went to a back room. He returned, carrying a leather pouch and a bundle wrapped in cloth. If you're determined to face them, take these. The pouch contains corn pollen blessed in the traditional way. Sprinkle it at entrances and thresholds. It won't stop them, but it will slow them. Give you time to escape if needed. The bundle contains turquoise, white shell, abalone, and jet, the 4 sacred stones. Keep them with you. They might offer some protection in the deep places. He handed them to me. Then he added one more thing. When you face them, don't look directly at their true forms. They show themselves only to those they intend to keep. If you see what they really are, you won't leave that place. Keep your eyes down. Speak with respect, but firmness. And remember, they're older than our gods. They remember when the world was different. We thanked Thomas and left. As we drove away, Raymond spoke. We're really doing this. We're going back to that cave. Tomorrow night, I said, we'll be prepared this time. And we'll find out what my father discovered, whatever the cost. We entered Sector 7 at dusk the next evening. Not following orders. Not with authorization. Just 2 tribal police officers with climbing gear, flashlights, weapons we both knew wouldn't help, and protective items from a 90-year-old medicine man. Raymond had brought rope, carabiners, and climbing harnesses. I'd brought extra batteries, first aid supplies, and a notebook to document whatever we found. We both carried Thomas's gifts, the corn pollen in leather pouches on our belts, the sacred stones in small cloth bags around our necks. The cave entrance was exactly where we'd marked it. In the fading light, it looked like a wound in the rock face, dark, irregular, leading down at a steep angle. We could see maybe 10 feet inside before the passage curved and disappeared into blackness. Last chance to turn back, Raymond said. We could report this location, let the specialized team handle it, keep our jobs and possibly our lives. My father came here, I replied. He went into one of these places trying to find answers. He didn't make it out. I need to know why. I need to finish what he started. Raymond nodded. Then let's not make his mistake. We stay together, we don't separate for any reason, and if things go wrong, we retreat immediately. Agreed? Agreed. We secured our rope to a sturdy juniper tree and began our descent. The cave passage was narrow at first, barely wide enough to move through. The walls were rough stone, cold to the touch. Our flashlight beams showed scratch marks on the walls, recent ones. Something had been moving through here regularly. After 20 feet, the passage opened into a larger chamber. We found ourselves in a natural cavern, maybe 30 feet across, with multiple passages leading deeper. The floor was littered with bones. Animal bones mostly. Sheep, deer, smaller creatures. All picked clean. Some of them showed teeth marks that didn't match any predator I knew. "This is a feeding chamber," Raymond said quietly. "They bring their kills here." We chose the largest passage and continued down. The air grew colder and had a mineral smell mixed with something organic and wrong. The passage twisted and turned, sometimes opening into chambers, sometimes narrowing so we had to crawl. We descended steadily, going deeper into the earth. After what felt like an hour, but might have been less, we reached a junction where 3 passages met, and there, carved into the stone wall, were symbols. Not Navajo, not any native marking I recognized. Older, much older. Geometric patterns that hurt to look at too long. "These markings predate anything human," Raymond said. He was right. They had a quality that seemed wrong somehow, like they'd been made by minds that didn't think in straight lines or right angles. We followed the largest passage. The walls here showed more scratch marks. And something else. Dark stains. Old blood dried to brown. Newer blood still red. Human and animal mixed together. Then we heard it. Voices. Multiple voices speaking in unison, coming from somewhere ahead. The words weren't English or Navajo. They weren't any language at all. Just sounds arranged in patterns that mimicked speech. We moved forward carefully. The passage opened into a massive cavern. Our lights couldn't reach the ceiling or the far walls. It was huge, and it wasn't natural. This had been carved, expanded, shaped by something with purpose. The floor of the cavern was covered in arranged objects, thousands of them. Bones arranged in geometric patterns. Stones placed in precise formations and scattered throughout, personal items. Watches, jewelry, clothing, tools, each one placed deliberately as part of some larger design. "It's like the livestock disappearances," I said. "They're arranging things, creating patterns." In the center of the cavern, we saw them, maybe 20 creatures, all moving in synchronized motion. They were maintaining the patterns, adjusting objects, adding new pieces to the arrangement. Each one stood between 6 and 8 feet tall. They moved on 4 limbs, but the limbs were elongated, bent at wrong angles. Their backs were arched, and their heads, even in the dim light, I could see the heads were wrong. They wore shapes. That's the only way I can describe it. Like they'd stolen the forms of animals and humans and combined them into something that shouldn't exist. One moment a creature would look almost wolf-like. Then it would shift and the proportions would change, becoming more bear-like. Then more human. Never settling on one form, always in flux. "Don't look directly at them," I whispered, remembering Thomas's warning. "Keep your eyes down." Too late. One of the creatures turned its head toward us. I caught a glimpse of what it really looked like underneath the shifting forms. Not the shapes it wore, but the actual entity beneath. My mind tried to process what I saw and failed. It was too many things at once, too many angles, too many surfaces that curved in directions that shouldn't exist in 3-dimensional space. I looked away immediately, feeling nauseous. Raymond had his eyes shut tight, had seen enough to know not to look further. The creature that had noticed us made a sound, that wet, guttural attempt at speech. The other creatures stopped their work and turned toward us as one. 20 sets of eyes, or what might have been eyes, Fixing on our position, I reached for the corn pollen pouch, sprinkled some on the ground in front of us. The creatures hesitated. Didn't approach, but didn't retreat. The pollen wasn't a barrier, just a suggestion, a reminder of old agreements. I spoke in Navajo first, then English, offering respect, asking for safe passage, explaining we came to understand, not to harm. The creatures tilted their heads in unison, that same puppet-like movement. Then one of them approached. Not the largest, but somehow I knew it was the one that spoke for them. It stopped just beyond the line of corn pollen. Up close, I could see it more clearly, the way its form flickered and shifted, the way its limbs bent at joints that appeared and disappeared, the way its face was almost human, but the features moved independently of each other. It spoke. The sounds formed words, barely intelligible but understandable. The voice seemed to come from multiple throats at once. Why do you come here to the old place? I kept my eyes low, looking at its shifting feet rather than its face. I am Thomas Begaye's son. He came here years ago. He tried to understand. I need to know what happened to him. The creature made sounds that might have been laughter or pain. It was impossible to tell. John. Begaye. Yes. We, remember, he came to make new boundaries, to restore balance. We listened, we considered. Then others came, others who did not want balance, who wanted only silence. What others? I asked. The creature gestured with one elongated limb toward a passage at the far side of the cavern. The ones who, mine, deep who, break through old places, who, disturb, what, should, stay. Hidden, they knew, your father found, truth, they made him. Quiet, the mining company, the federal government. All the same. The creature replied. Surface, dwellers, who, take, but, do, not give who, destroy without thought. Your father wanted to protect this place, they wanted to hide what was found, so they removed him. Then why take the livestock? Why kill the animals? Why take people? The creature moved closer just to the edge of the pollen line. Because the mining woke us fully for centuries. We slept, light in the deep places, taking only what we needed, staying hidden. Then they dug down, broke into our dwellings, brought light and noise and poison. So we responded, took what was on surface to replace what they took from below. You're taking livestock and people as compensation, as revenge? Not revenge, the creature said. Balance. They take from deep. We take from surface. They destroy our dwelling. We mark their territory. They disturb sleep. We disturb life. Balance. The people you take, I said, the ones who don't come back, what happens to them? The creature gestured toward the arranged objects on the cavern floor. Some become part of pattern, part of understanding. We study, surface, dwellers. Learn how they think, how they move. Some we keep. Long time, very long time, in deep places where Time is different. Are they still alive? Can they be returned? Time is different below, the creature repeated. Years. On. Surface are days below. Those we took decades ago are still learning. Still part of pattern, but they do not age same way. They exist different. Show me, I demanded. The creature tilted its head. You wish to see the kept ones, the studied ones. If you see, you may stay, may become part of pattern. Are you willing? Raymond grabbed my arm. Don't, he said. This is what Thomas warned about. Don't go deeper. Don't see more. But I had to know. Had to see if my father was among them. If there was any chance he'd been taken rather than killed, show me, I repeated. The creature made that sound again. Then it turned and walked toward the passage at the far side of the cavern. Raymond and I followed, staying behind the line it wouldn't cross. The passage led to another chamber, smaller than the first. And along the walls, arranged in alcoves carved into the stone, were people. Maybe 30 of them. Some standing, some sitting, all perfectly still. They weren't dead. I could see them breathing, but they weren't moving. Weren't aware of us, just staring into nothing. They ranged in age from teenagers to elderly. Some wore clothing from the 70s, some from the 50s. One man near the back wore what looked like clothes from the 20s or 30s. They'd been here for decades, kept alive in some kind of suspended state, part of the pattern the creatures were studying. I searched the faces. Didn't see my father. Relief and disappointment mixed together. Where's John Begaye? I asked. The creature pointed to an empty alcove. John Begaye was here for 2 days. Surface, time, many months. Below, time, he taught much, shared much. Then the others came, the surface dwellers, who wanted silence. They negotiated for his release. We agreed. They took him, made him quiet, made him accident. So he was here, was alive. Then they killed him to cover it up. The creature made an affirmative sound. Balance was almost achieved. John Begaye understood us. We understood him. Agreement could have been made, then surface dwellers interfered, broke negotiation, took him. So we took more from surface, balance, disrupted, again. I felt anger building, at the mining company, at whoever had ordered my father's death, at the system that had covered it all up. But also a strange sympathy for these creatures. They'd been disturbed, violated, their home destroyed by mining. They were trying to restore balance the only way they knew how. Can a new agreement be made? I asked. Can we restore balance without more killing? The creature was still for a long moment. Then it spoke. If surface dwellers stay away from deep places, if they seal the mine forever, if they respect boundaries, we will stay below, will take no more from surface. But if they come again, if they dig again, we will respond. Balance must be maintained. I'll make sure the mind stays sealed, I said. I'll make sure people know Sector 7 is restricted. But you have to return these people, the ones you've kept. They need to go back. The creature looked at the alcoves. If they return, they will be changed. Time moves different. Below, their bodies will age quickly when brought to surface. Most will die within days. Is this what you want? I looked at the kept ones, at people who'd been missing for decades, preserved in some impossible way. Bringing them back would kill them, but leaving them here meant they'd stay in this suspended state forever. Let them choose, I said. Wake them, let them decide. The creature made that sound again. Then it moved through the chamber, touching each kept one. As it touched them, they stirred. Awareness returned to their eyes. Confusion, fear, then slowly understanding. An elderly man in 70s clothing spoke first. How long? He asked, voice hoarse. His disappearance had been in 1973, 46 years ago. But I couldn't tell him that, couldn't explain what he'd missed. Long enough, I said. You can stay here where time moves slowly, or you can return to the surface where time catches up. It's your choice. Most chose to return. Only 3 wanted to stay, too afraid of what they'd lost, what they'd face. We led the others back through the passages up toward the surface, 27 people who'd been missing for decades, now being given a second chance, even if it would be a brief one. When we emerged from the cave, dawn was breaking. We'd been underground all night. The kept ones blinked in the light, overwhelmed by the sky, by space, by freedom. Within an hour, vehicles arrived, Lieutenant Zoe and the specialized team he'd mentioned. They weren't tribal police, federal agents in unmarked vehicles. The same people who'd silenced my father, Zoe, pulled me aside. You weren't supposed to go in there, he said. You were explicitly ordered to stand down. My father went in there, I replied. He found the truth. Then you people killed him to keep it quiet. Zoe's expression was pained. I didn't know, Thomas, I swear. I thought it was an accident until yesterday when I started asking questions, started pushing for answers. That's when they told me. That's when they explained what really happened in Sector 7. Who are they? I demanded. Department of Energy. Department of Interior. Agencies that don't officially exist. They've been managing the situation here since the 50s, containing knowledge of what's below, making sure it stays quiet. Well, it's not quiet anymore, I said. 27 people just came out of that cave, people who've been missing for decades. You can't cover that up. One of the federal agents approached. Actually, we can. These people will be debriefed, examined, and relocated. Their families will be told they were found alive. Happy ending. But the details of where they were and what kept them will be classified national security. What about the creatures? What about the mining that caused all this? The agent smiled without warmth. The mine was sealed in 1968 for a reason. Officer Begaye. We've known about the entities below since the 50s. The mining operation was partially a uranium extraction and partially an investigation. We wanted to understand what was down there. We got our answers. Then we sealed it up. Your father threatened to make it public. We couldn't allow that. Now you're making the same threat. I'm not threatening, I said. I'm promising. People have a right to know. The agent stepped closer. Do they? Do they have a right to know there are things older than human civilization living under the reservation? Things that can't be killed or contained? Things that see humans as temporary curiosities? What do you think happens when that knowledge becomes public? Panic, exploitation. Someone will try to weaponize them, someone will try to study them, and the entities below will respond the way they always respond, by restoring balance, which means more deaths, more disappearances, more terror. So we just pretend it doesn't exist? We respect the boundaries, the agent said. We keep people away from Sector 7. We maintain the agreement. And in return, the entities stay below. It's not perfect, but it's kept both sides alive. I wanted to argue, wanted to expose everything. But looking at the kept ones, at people who'd aged 40 years in the span of a morning, who'd be dead within days from the temporal shock, I realized the agent was right. Some truths were too dangerous. Some knowledge did more harm than good. The agreement with the creatures will be honored, I said. Sector 7 stays restricted. The mine stays sealed. But I want it on record. I want documentation of what really happened to my father, and I want justice for him. Justice was done, the agent said. The mine supervisor who ordered your father's death died in 1989. The company that ran the operation was dissolved in 1992. Everyone involved is gone. All we can do now is maintain the peace. Raymond and I were officially commended for finding the missing persons, given awards, promoted. All the kept ones were processed through the system, given new identities, relocated far from the reservation. Most died within a year, their bodies unable to handle the sudden return to normal time. 3 survived, living quiet lives under assumed names. Sector 7 remains restricted. The mine stays sealed, and every few years, when livestock start disappearing, tribal police file reports about predator attacks. Because some truths can't be written down. Some agreements can't be official. Some things that live in the deep places need to stay hidden, not for their protection, but for ours. My father found the truth and it killed him. I found the truth and it showed me why some secrets need to be kept. Not because the government says so, but because the alternative is worse. The creatures are still down there, still arranging their patterns, still studying what they've collected, still waiting to see if humans can finally learn to respect boundaries, to honor agreements, to understand that we're not the oldest things on this land, just the newest, and possibly the most temporary.